I wasn't going to do a video today, but I saw something in the news that has moved me to make a video. On why you should get your kids out of school now. Now listen, I'll just prefix this by saying I'm not against the coronavirus vaccine. If you're a consenting adult that can understand the risks and you want it, then, you know, or you're infirm or elderly or vulnerable, then have it if you want to have it. I won't be having it, but that's my decision. I'm not going to fall out of anybody who's had the jab. I don't expect anybody normal who's had the jab to fall out of somebody who hasn't had the jab. If you've had the jab, you can still pass it on, you can still catch it. So the only person it affects is yourself if you've had it or not. What I'm against is this hatred towards each other, whether you've had it or not had it. Coercion, tyranny, restrictions, vaccine passports, that's what I'm against. Okay? So, what were in the news this morning was that from the 6th of September, schools in the UK are going to start rolling out the vaccine for COVID from the ages 12 to 15, and children as young as 12 can have the jab without their parents' consent. That's what I'm against. You know, I'm a big believer in parental rights. God has given you those children because he has chosen you to be their parent. You know the best. And, you know, I could sit here and say, I wrote it down so that I don't jumble my words, so I can be concise and quick. I could sit here and say kids don't need to be vaccinated to return to normal life. They're incredibly low risk. This is an old person's, infirm person's disease, which is not my opinion, it's fact. And they should be going back to normal life already. And I could sit here and say, you know, why vaccinate children when they're a low risk with something that is experimental and the long-term risks aren't known, because there is no long-term after effect data, is there? And the last thing I could say is there can be no talk of moral obligation to vaccinate as long as vaccine manufacturers are exempt from liability for vaccine injuries or death. But what I'm going to say is, do you think a 12-year-old, I mean, my oldest is nearly 11, to think that in nearly a year's time he could make a decision like that, do you think nearly a 12-year-old is willing to do the opposite of what their friends are doing, to resist peer pressure and bullying if they do the opposite of what everybody else is doing? Do you think a 12-year-old is going to stand up to a load of teachers that are drilling it into their head that they need to have it, You don't want grandma to die if you don't have it. You don't chuck your children on the fire to keep granddad warm. There's so many 12-year-olds that are going to just do it because everybody else is doing it. And also, the idea that the government, 1 minute can say, oh, you're only 12 years old, so you can't drive a car, have a tattoo, have a drink, join the army, all this other stuff. You can't decide if you want to go to school or not, stuff like that. But because it suits them, they can choose if they're having an experimental vaccine or not. And the idea that the government has more rights over my child in terms of a medical procedure than I do is abhorrent. It's disgusting. To take away parental rights over something like this, I don't understand why people aren't kicking off about this more. People think it's not going to happen. It says in the news it's going to happen, but it doesn't happen till the 6th of September. It's time for you to pull your kids out of school. There's time for people to object about this, but will they? School. This just makes me even gladder that we homeschool. If you're even slightly considering homeschool, this is the time to take your kids out of school. Because it won't stop at 12-year-olds. I mean, 12-year-olds is bad enough. It'll be younger kids soon. No school, the politics, corona aside, no school has the right to tell your kids that they can have this, that and the other done, medical-wise, you know, whether it be a vaccine or any kind of medication or medical procedure. They tell you they don't have to consult you, they don't have to tell you. It's disgusting. Schools forget, and the government and the council forget that they are meant to be working for us, not the other way round. They are my children. I will decide I will educate them and tell them the risks, and if they and discuss it with them if they are having it or not. It is not their job, it is not their place. School has long stopped being about education. It's about indoctrination, getting them to constantly question their sexuality, and now telling them that they can have medical procedures at as young as 12 years old before they've even hit puberty without the parents' consent. I'm livid about this, and I don't understand why other people aren't. Do yourself a favour, take your kids out of school. It's my opinion.